Hi everyone, my name is Rita, and today I have a stalker. He's not exactly your typical creepy stalker because he's actually a very special guy. So it started when I went to college after summer break. We had a new professor named Adam, and he was hot. Seriously, like model material. Every time he looked at me, I wanted to melt. And honestly, he was the reason I went to his class. I was thinking about him a lot. Time passed until one day I came home to find out that my dad cheated on my mom and that they were getting a divorce. It was so hard to deal with. That's when I stopped caring about anything. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped wearing pretty clothes, and during class, I was crying constantly. One day, Adam called me over to ask if everything was okay. When I told him what was up, he said that I was the most amazing student he'd ever met, and a person like me shouldn't feel upset. Then he gave me a little note that said, "Be strong, you are special," with a heart. I wished that I could hug him, but it was not appropriate. So I said thank you and left. But then Robbie saw me. Robbie was my bully back in school, and you could say my biggest enemy. He was standing in the hallway and he started going after me. He pulled my hair and snatched the note from my hand. He started teasing me about it. I jumped on him trying to grab it, but then he grabbed my butt. I froze and felt like I was about to cry. But then Adam saw him and he flipped out. He told Robbie he was going to get him expelled. I thought things would be okay after that, but they somehow got even worse. Robbie would just stand in the hallway staring at me. Whenever I drove home, I would notice his car following me. I tried to calm myself down, and that's when the text started. "I'm watching you. I see your mom just turned the hall light off. It would be a shame if you woke up to someone in your room, wouldn't it?" I seriously couldn't believe someone was texting me that crazy stuff. When I texted and said, "Robbie, leave me alone," he went off. "Your family is a nightmare. Don't you want to go away with me? I'll come in and take care of your family." When Adam saw me so emotional one day, he asked me to stay after class. I told him what was going on, and he told me he had to do something. Robbie had stopped showing up to college, so he couldn't suspend him. Instead, he told me he would drive me home after college. He said he normally wouldn't do it, but since I was in such a scary position, we could keep it a secret, and it would be okay. Those drives home with him were the only time I felt safe. He let me tell him everything about my parents, about how lonely I felt. I started seeing my stalker stand outside my window at night. He would just stand on the street, staring at me with a weapon in his hand, and he wore a mask. When I drew the blinds, he'd text me to open them or he'd come up and make me. I left the blinds open. His threat made my blood run cold. I realized I had to call the cops. I couldn't live like this anymore. But when they showed up, he was already gone, and they wouldn't listen to my story. He texted me telling me I had made a huge mistake. The next night, I heard my back door open. I could hardly believe it. I didn't know what to do, so I tried texting my parents, but my phone wasn't going through. Did he have a cell phone signal jammer or something? I knew I was in trouble. I hid in my closet, shaking. His footsteps were downstairs, but then they came closer and closer to my door. He knew exactly where I was. Slowly, he opened the door. I couldn't see his face, only the bright blue mask he wore. I could see my life flash before my eyes. What was he going to do to me? To my surprise, he just walked away, like nothing happened. I hardly slept that night. When I got up the next morning, I awoke to screaming. My parents yelled at me to get downstairs. The entire kitchen was destroyed. Alcohol bottles were all over the place. Lipstick smeared on the wall read, "I hate this family." I was horrified. I was even more horrified when I realized my family thought I did it. I tried to explain the truth, but they threw my clothes at me, and they smelled like alcohol. They thought I had partied and destroyed my house. I tried to explain that Robbie did it. My parents told me they couldn't handle my lies anymore. I had to leave. I rushed to school with tears in my eyes and ran directly into Adam's arms. He took me out to his car and got me to calm down. When I told him what was happening, he told me he would help take care of me. We'd have to keep it secret, but I could stay in his guest room. I was absolutely shocked. I looked up to Adam. He was like a god to me. He was just going to let me live with him? While we were talking, I noticed Robbie walking into college. His eyes locked on me. I flipped him off. He wasn't going to be able to get to me anymore. I moved into Adam's place after school that day. I was super quiet about it, but inside I was dying. We sat on his couch watching TV and eating snacks for hours. He told me how grown up I was for my age, how I wasn't like any of the other students. I felt myself blushing. Soon, we were spending literally every second together, waking up, driving to college, doing classes, driving home, then spending all afternoon and night together. But the texts from Robbie didn't stop. He said he was going to find me. I tried to ignore them. I knew I was safe and he wouldn't be able to get me. Adam was protecting me. As time went on, Adam started treating me really nicely. He bought me new clothes and gave me a lot of gifts. I told Mom I was staying at my father's house and told my dad that I was at my mom's. They never spoke with each other to check up on me. When Robbie started texting me, threatening to get me at college, Adam made me stay home. So I did. I sat alone in his house all day long. When he got home, he promised to teach me, but he didn't. He said I wouldn't need that with him taking care of me. Soon, he confessed that he was in love with me, and I told him I loved him too. After we got into a relationship, he became very controlling. He wanted to be with me all the time, and he would check my phone all the time. He said that I was the person he loved most in the world, and that's why he needed to make sure I was always okay. One day, while he was on his way home from work, I heard a phone buzzing in the house, and it wasn't my phone. I started looking around, and nothing. But when I got closer to the basement door, I was sure that the sound was coming from there. I went down, and when I opened the door, I saw the most shocking scene in my life. Robbie was tied down in the basement, and he looked like he was in pretty bad shape. I quickly ran to him and removed the duct tape off his mouth. He looked pretty terrified. He started crying, "Help me, please help." I was trying to calm him down to understand what had happened, but he was too terrified. But then I heard Adam coming inside the house. I put the duct tape on Robbie's mouth and told him to be quiet, and I went upstairs quickly. I closed the basement door slowly. I had to act cool. I couldn't let him know I knew or he would hurt me. It seemed like it would be best if I tried to escape and get help for Robbie. That night, when he went to sleep, I started sneaking out of the house. He must have seen me get out of bed because when my hand landed on the door, he asked me what I was doing. I couldn't think. I ran out of the house in a panic. I heard him chasing after me and I could feel him trying to grab me. I started screaming for help, hoping that one of the neighbors would call 911. Finally, someone opened their door and called the police. Adam was later arrested for a ton of things. It was illegal for him to be intimate with me. He was a teacher. He had practically kidnapped me. And the worst of all, he had kept a hostage in his basement. I had to go to the hospital for being malnourished. My parents came and comforted me, telling me they were sorry and they had been worried. It took me weeks to be strong enough to leave the hospital. But the worst part is, I missed him. I loved him. How could I love someone so sick? I really missed him after the whole thing, so I went to visit him in prison in secret. He told me that he really loved me and that I was the only girl who made him feel like that in his life. He then started to tell me all kinds of information about me, things no one knew. He was beyond obsessed with me, and for a moment, I wished I could forget everything and escape with him. But then he told me he was getting ready to kill my parents at some point because they were making my life hell. I was shocked. Did he actually mean that? I grabbed my stuff and got out of there quickly. After this, I started going to therapy. My psychiatrist explained what was going on. Apparently, I had been groomed by Adam. He went out of his way to find a vulnerable person, me, younger than him, going through trouble at home, and he made me feel like I needed to be protected. So he sent me messages pretending to be Robbie to keep me scared, and then he prisoned Robbie in the basement to punish him for looking at me. He had trashed my house, made me scared of a stalker, and simultaneously given me love and affection, all so he could manipulate me into being his pawn. Now, I'm doing a lot better. My parents have figured out their stuff, and I'm living with them until I graduate. Being groomed was scary, and I didn't realize it was happening. I'm so grateful to have my sanity and my confidence back. What did you think of my story? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more.